Brett?
Just on closing the gap, there's been a lot of frustration from First Nations people this week about the lack of tangible progress in achieving those measures. How committed are you to closing the gaps? There's many of them. And just in terms of your comments yesterday about Australia not having had slavery, do you regret those comments and do you accept that we have seen those actions here in Australia, that First Nations Australians have been very upset to hear you make those remarks?
I think anyone who's seen my commentary from the very first speech I made in this place, I've had an enduring and committed passion to closing the gap. One of the most important things that I've had the opportunity to participate in as a Member of Parliament was in those first few weeks when I was able to stand for the national apology. And this is the point about Australia. In Australia, we know we have had problems in our past. We have acknowledged those. And indeed, in our federal parliament, we have acknowledged those. I've always said we need to look at our history. The comments I was referring to was to how the New South Wales settlement was first established and the views that were communicated at the time in forming the New South Wales colony. And if you go back to people like William Wilberforce and others, they were very involved in that first fleet expedition. And one of the principles was to be that Australia, or in that case New South Wales, was not to have lawful slavery. And that was indeed the case. There was not the laws that have ever approved of slavery in this country. So I don't intend to get into the history wars. My comments were not intended to give offence, and if they did, I deeply regret that and apologise for that. But this is not about getting into the history wars. I was simply trying to make the point that Australia, yes, we have had issues in our history. We have acknowledged them. I have acknowledged them. And we need to address them. And particularly those who I work closely with in this area would know that personally I have been heavily invested in these issues. And I will continue to be heavily invested in these issues, and I pay tribute to my predecessors as Prime Minister, because you know, when you're Prime Minister, you know this is a responsibility that you have, together with your Minister for Indigenous Australians. And that has always been the case from either side of politics, and I genuinely don't believe there are large divisions when it comes to the issue of acknowledging the treatment of Indigenous Australians in this country. But I tell you what there is an even bigger passion for, and that is to ensure that the passage of reconciliation, the process of improving the lives and outcomes of Indigenous Australians is foremost in our minds. And I think all Australians of goodwill and good faith are endeavouring to achieve that, and I will continue to seek to achieve that. David.